Welcome to the Book Club Life, where we talk a lot about books, a little about life, and have awesome author interviews. And today, I cannot believe I get to interview one of my writing heroes, Julie Klassen. She is a multi-Christie Award-winning Rita finalist for Romance Writers of America, and plenty of awards for other books and all kinds of things. Julie, and you are just one of my favorite authors of all time.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you so much for doing this interview with
My
me.
pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So I first knew about you when I was browsing the bookstore. I was newly married, I was teaching full-time, and a very stressful job, even though very rewarding. And I remember buying your book and inhaling it over the weekend, and then one line on page 404, the last sentence on that page, and I just lost it. I cried the ugliest tears, the kind that you go to the mirror just to see how bad you look when you're done. And I've read every book since, except for the last one I haven't read yet.
Okay.
And I love Julie's books, and I highly recommend her books for your book club, especially I think Lady of Milkweed Manor, her very first book, is perfect for book clubs because there's so much mystery, so much drama, so much to talk about. But
It's interesting you say that, because I would say that even though that's my oldest book, that I do still have a lot of book clubs who are reading it now.
yeah,
So it's still in print, and I think because it does have that kind of, with the wet nursing and some of the other topics,
Yes.
it definitely has much more to talk about than your average
right.
romance novel.
This is more than just a love story or a historical fiction. It's you know, I don't know. It's just got that darkness, but also the transformation, and it's just so much. And so this was actually, I want to say, the second in the top 3 books that I did when I first started my book club, and everybody loved it, and we went overtime. But how did you get started in writing? And can you tell us also a little bit about your family?
Sure. So I have a husband, and I have 2 boys who are now college age, so they're 21 and 19. And I always wanted to be a writer, and I think that's a way God wired me, or a dream He put in my heart from a very young age. But as you know, there's seasons in life, and
Right.
I procrastinated for many years, and I had real jobs, and then we had kids, and so it was not till much later that I actually got serious about it. God was very good to me. He knew I had this dream, and he kind of directed me along a path where I ended up working for a Christian publishing company. And so that was what an amazing training
Right.
ground for someone who wanted to be a writer,
Definitely.
was a closet writer or a secret writer, but really wasn't doing it. So I worked for Bethany House for about 16 years, first in advertising and then as an editor. And then when I finally wrote my first historical.
And was this your first?
This is my first historical. I have one contemporary still gathering dust, who I don't
Okay.
know if that'll ever see the light of day.
Okay.
But when I finally wrote my first historical, then I was in a quandary, because my ideal publisher would be Bethany House, and I worked for them, so I didn't know what to do. But make a long story short, they sent the book around. My boss knew it was me, nobody else did, and sent it around with a different name, with a pseudonym,
Oh.
so that my coworkers who were going to be deciding whether to publish it or not would be objective. So that was how I got started.
And that was this one
and
that
that
they sent
was
around.
yeah.
So
And
that
I
must
still,
have felt very
and I
good.
still think it's funny, because I would have loved to have been a little mouse in the room when the committee that decides, because it's a very male-oriented, conservative committee. And there's this book about a woman who
Yes.
has a child out of wedlock and becomes
Yes.
a wet nurse,
There's
and is
nursing,
breastfeeding,
yes.
and all of this. And my guess is that my editors kind of glazed over all of that, and got that they really wanted to publish it. So I was very blessed that they wanted to publish it. And after that, the cat's been out of the bag, and I get
Yes.
edited just as hard.
And
as,
oh my goodness, Julie is awesome.
yeah, well, I kept working there for, like we learned, you don't quit your day job. For me, it took about 4 years or 4 books before I could, sort of support
Yeah.
myself as an author. But that's how it started. And
That's
I'm very
very
blessed because it is that lifelong dream
Yeah.
that has come true.
That's awesome. And we are giving away a copy of Lady of Milkweed Manor. Check the show description and to see how to enter. And if you've already read this, because this was one of her earlier books, I'll give away any of the books that you can choose your favorite Julie Klassen book that you haven't read
There
yet.
are 12 others
Yes.
to choose from.
And I've loved every single one. So for the next part of our interview, we're going to, I'm going to ask you questions that I would have asked my book club, only you get to answer them, and they're all inspired by the book. And then after that, we'll do a little just for fun round. In Lady of Milkweed Manor, our focus book for this episode, one of the characters has a fractured relationship with her father, and her mother, she had a great relationship. She really misses her. And I noticed when I was reading the dedication at the front of the book that you mentioned how loving your own parents have been, so very different from her relationship with her father.
Right.
So my question is, what are one or two qualities that you admire in your parents, or you can choose one of them if you want, that you would also like people to say about you?
Wow. Well, my parents left some pretty big shoes. They're both gone now, but they really were my biggest supporters and fans my whole life. And I think my dedication specifically talks about their unconditional love.
Yes.
Which was a huge deal to me because I was not a perfect child. I certainly made mistakes and gave them gray hairs and all of that, but I never once doubted their love for me. And so I definitely credit them in a big way for me pursuing the dream and believing I could be creative and do something like this. And just I think it's kind of a fun little aside. So when this book was published in the Netherlands, apparently the title Lady of Milkweed Manor did not translate well.
Okay.
So they came up with a different title and they used the word unconditional, because that's what I described my parents and thanking them for their unconditional love. And they saw that as a theme throughout the book. That's what she wanted. And
right.
The main character longed for that unconditional love. So they actually, the name in Dutch, I can't say it. It's one long word that means unconditional, taken from that dedication. So that's interesting that you asked me about that. So I miss my parents. They're wonderful. I don't think anyone would describe me as hardworking as they were or so many other things, but I hope my kids do know that I love them unconditionally. I think they do.
They do now, for sure. I'm sure they did. Okay, well, unconditional love is a theme of the book. Another theme is sacrifice, which is very different than just giving up. Sacrifice has intent to it and a cost to it. Can you tell us either something that you have sacrificed in life or something that someone else has sacrificed for you, and how did it impact your life?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. And there's probably a lot of people who have sacrificed for my life. But for some reason, the person that kind of stands out to me right now is my husband, because when we were married and all that, he knew I had this dream, but it wasn't his dream for me. He just loved me as I was, but he has been so supportive and sacrificed some of his own preferences. He probably doesn't want to go to England every time we travel like I do for research, and was so supportive with the kids when they were little, taking the time and watching them so I could go off and write and that sort of thing. So he's just a very humble, kind of sweet, funny guy, but definitely sacrificed, time and energy for me to help, support my dreams. So thanks, honey.
That is really neat. My husband is the same. He's at home with the kids right now and doing that. And I've seen pictures of you and your husband dressed in period costume on your Facebook. Oh yeah,
that's a good point. Talk about sacrificing.
So check out
dressing
Julie's.
As Mr. Darcy for me.
So he does it only for you. He's not into it.
He doesn't normally dress that way in his life as a computer nerd, no. But for me, he will.
It's his
don the britches.
Side life, yes. Well, supportive husbands are awesome.
Yes, worth a lot.
Okay, well, the main character, I wasn't going to give away which character, but I guess I did. It doesn't probably matter. But so gardens are a refuge for Charlotte, and she finds joy there. What brings you refuge, rest, and joy in your life?
That's another good question. You come up with good questions, Jenny.
Thank you.
I really love going for walks, and I have this this kind of feeling, if I don't get out into the woods after too many months, it's going to sound weird, but I really feel the need to get out in the woods. And I feel like that's kind of my natural habitat, is being out in the woods. I don't crave the mountains. I like the ocean, but I don't crave it. But I do crave being out in the woods, and I love to walk through the woods. So for me, there's just something about getting out in nature, going for a walk, either by myself or with my husband, but just that kind of quiet. I love to walk on pine needles. That's my favorite. Yeah, so for me, it's not specifically gardens, but related, getting outside.
That's beautiful. What state do you live in?
I live in Minnesota.
In Minnesota, that's right. Okay. We're here at the Northwest Christian Writers Conference in Minnesota, so.
Yes. And it's the right time to come to Minnesota.
Yes, it's beautiful. I live in Texas, so it was nice to step out into the outside and not melt.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to read a quote from page 24. 3 women, 6 souls in one small bed. And wow, that sentence made me stop and just think, oh my goodness. I mean, just, she's at a home for unwed mothers.
Right.
And it's no hotel room for sure. But just 3 women, 6 souls. And every life is so precious, and babies, nursing babies, caring for them, and life after childbirth, revolving around children, is a major part of this book. So in your own life, what is something that has surprised you about either giving birth or caring for your babies or being a mother?
Well, boy, nothing, in my mind, nothing changes you like becoming a parent. And did you say you have kids?
I do, 2 boys and a girl.
So there's something about becoming a parent. Well, one thing I'll say is I didn't realize how hard it was. And thankfully, I would, if someone is just starting the journey, find some friends. For me, what saved me is I didn't have family in the cities, and through an early childhood class, started gathering with these other moms who were in the same boat, who were not sleeping and didn't know what we were doing and trying to figure all this out. And we're lifelong friends to this day, even though our kids are grown now. So get some support, because it is hard.
It is hard.
The other thing, there's so many things, but I don't think as a Christian, as a believer, nothing really opened my eyes to the sacrifice. Talk about sacrifice.
Right.
The sacrifice that God made, sending his only son into the world. When you have a son or a child of any kind, and you know what that love feels like, and how much you love that child, and how you would give your life to give anything to protect that child, that really brought to life for me how much God loves us to send his son to us. More than any other sermon or a book I read, becoming a parent really brought that to life for me.
I would agree with that. And just how much he loves us. When you see your kids, when they mess up, it's not that they messed up, it's the heart. As soon as they come back to you, I'm sorry. I know. Just that love.
For sure.
So one more question related to the book, and then we'll do just for fun.
Okay.
So I mentioned earlier the last sentence on page 404. It made me cry.
Don't remember it.
Oh, you don't remember? I'm going to show you as soon as this interview is over. And by the way, do not go look. Read the book first.
Yes,
don't
please.
spoil it. It's you want to take the journey to get there, and that's when you're going to cry. This book is so emotionally gripping and riveting, and the tension builds and builds and builds from page 1. So, when I was just rereading it yesterday, even this morning in my little hotel room at breakfast, I noticed a couple of people looking at me because
Is this? I don't remember the page number, but is this the final?
I'll tell you later.
Scene?
Don't say anything.
That song was saying, but we're talking about the final.
It's at the end.
Okay.
It's at the end. So anyways, so my kids know that sometimes, they'll say, Mom, is it so beautiful that you're crying? Saying, oh, it's so beautiful, I cried. So what is something, a time in your life or something that happened in your life that was so beautiful that you cried? Or if you don't cry like I do, what is something so beautiful that you knew, I will never forget this?
Another good question. Now I remember specifically, but the point in the scene that you're talking about crying, and it doesn't necessarily mean that someone is sad. It happened, I am a crier, I'm afraid, and so I don't have, I'm sure there's, again, many examples, but it just happened yesterday that one of my sons is going through some stuff, which as happens in life, and you don't, when you're 19 or 21, I mean, there's some tough times.
Yes.
And so I was feeling kind of low too, and I got a text from a dear Christian woman who prayed the most beautiful prayer for my son and for me, and just lifted us up to the Father. But her words were just, they were just what I needed to hear, and she didn't have to do that. And the timing of it was sort of a gift from her, but also I knew it was a gift from God, a little reassurance, and I got teary just reading her prayer that she texted, and knowing that someone was praying.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's good.
That happens.
I don't know if you're a Toby Mac fan or not, but he has a song called Scars. He wrote it for his son.
Oh, okay.
But it's just, there's a line in there. I don't think it's copyright to say.
I don't think so.
That scars come with living, and that we all have our scars, and they hurt when they're fresh.
Right. Good point.
Okay. So now we come to the Just for Fun section. What do you do for fun when you're done with writing a book? And by the way, how long does it take you to write a book?
Well, I don't care. Hand me one of those.
Oh, yes.
So you can see that, so these are fairly thick.
They're great on Audible too, a good 17 hours.
There are a lot of words in here.
Yes.
So I would like to figure out a way to write them a little quicker, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I would say, I've basically been doing one a year, and it's about an 8-month process, and then my editors do their wonderful magic. I would never want to be without my editors. But am I writing constantly for 8 months? No. There's research that goes into that. There's, in terms of actual writing, I write a really ugly first draft because I cannot stand the empty and I have to write the first pages. And having worked as an editor for years, I know I can fix them, but I can't fix empty pages.
You have to get the story down first.
So I know some authors, they outline in such detail, they can write beautiful scenes and they polish each scene as they go. Well, that has not been my process to date. I need to kind of figure out I have my outline, I know where I'm going in general, but you do have a lot of discovery along the way, some room for surprises and things. So I do write a really ugly first draft. And that probably takes 2 or 3 of those months, but then there's lots of revising and printing out and reading and getting feedback from my first reader and all that. So that's why it takes,
Do you revise it before you let your editor see it?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I didn't know how much.
Nobody sees the first one.
Even after all these years, okay.
No, I write it. In fact, I'm working on, I think you're going to ask me about what I'm working on later, but I write this really ugly draft. I edit it as much as I can. I revise it. I print it out. I read it, make more changes, make those, put those in, and then I have a first reader or a beta reader who reads it. And so she reads it, and then I make even more changes before I turn it into the publisher.
So after you've turned it in, you're done. It's been edited, galleys, all that. And before you have to start marketing, what do you do in the middle of there? Like, whew, I have some time. How do you recharge?
A couple things. Well, one, I love to plan trips to England. I love to travel to England.
Are you still taking fans with you to England?
I have taken I've led 2 group trips now, which has been a blast. I've hosted 2 group trips, and we just got back from the second one, and it was a wonderful time again. So I might have to do a third. We'll see. We haven't decided, but they were really fun. So I love to travel in general, and I love to go to England. Just on a more day in and day out. I do love period dramas, costume dramas, and that sort of thing. And so I try not to watch much television in general, but when I have a little break, then I do like to watch some Jane Austen things, or Do you watch the same ones? So my next question was favorite movie or TV show. So which ones in particular? Well, I do love movies, but there are some that I watch perennially. Like I do love Pride and Prejudice, the BBC Colin Firth, 1995 version. I love this Persuasion. That's a good one too. I love so many of those. So I do watch those more than once and let myself do that. But and they're coming out with new ones all the time. Right. And so I watch all of those. So that's kind of my, guilty pleasure is the word. But it's usually something like
Your much deserved reward.
Usually something like that. I love those.
Favorite dessert or snack?
All of them.
Okay.
Yes, I have it. This is probably pretty obvious. I have a sweet tooth.
No, it's not obvious at all.
I love sweets, but yeah, but then you have to go back to the salty, and then you got to go back to the sweet. A little salty, a little
Yes,
sweet.
a little of each.
Yeah, but I love all that cookies, ice cream, you name it.
Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's a fun one.
Okay.
I don't think I've asked anybody else before.
Okay.
An author you love is blank because blank.
You should copyright these questions. They're awesome. That's a hard one too, but there's lots of authors. So I would say an author I love is Lynn Austen.
Oh yes, she's another one of my favorites.
Is she?
Yes. The Pursuit, A Proper Pursuit, is one of my all-time favorites. In fact, you and her are both in a blog post I did a long time ago. 14 amazing romances for Valentine's Day.
Oh, really?
And y'all are both on there. So.
And I don't remember if it was I love her because, or I like her because. I mean, one of my favorite books of hers was Hidden Places. I don't know if you've ever read that one.
Yes.
Hidden Places by Lynn Austen.
Very good.
They also made a movie out of it. They made a lot of changes, so read the book.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie's fine too, but I really love that book. But I love her as a person, and I think she's a really good writer, I think. And she writes so many different genres, but she's such a good writer that she can do that and do it well.
Yes, she's amazing.
Lynn Austen.
Here's one I'd love to ask. How did you know that your husband was the guy for you?
Let's see.
So when did it go from, ooh, I like him, to I love him, I will marry him if he asks me?
You know what? We were a little older when we met, and so I think I had dated the world at that point. So when I met him, I was not the moment I met him at our house. Oddly enough, the house we live in now. I was invited to this game night at this house. There's some mutual friends. I had never met him before, there were so many people I didn't know that I came home with this impression that he was short, had really curly hair, and was funny. I was only right on one of those. He is funny. He's not really short. He doesn't have curly hair. I don't know. So when he called me up to ask me out, a week later he waited a week to be cool.
Okay. Yes.
I was like, oh, okay. And so then he comes to my door, and I was like, oh, I better go put on some lipstick. He was taller and he was more handsome than I remembered. And but I think with Brian, I mean, one of the first things he told me. I said some dumb thing about, I probably shouldn't act too eager. He asked me, can I call you again? And I said something, I probably shouldn't act too eager. And he's like, I don't play games. And he liked me and he wanted me to know that. And he was just, he was someone who's,
he went after you.
Yeah, and he was, definitely pursued me. And, we had all the other, we had the faith in common and so many things that were just, critical and important. Yeah. And that sense of humor was real and is still something that I really like about him, and it's been almost 30 years, so
that's awesome. So get out, go places, and nothing against the short guys with curly hair. There's someone for you too. Okay, what advice would you give yourself as a teen if you could go back?
And I don't know if you're hoping for something writerly, but I have to say most honestly that I would say something like, to any young woman today, just to realize your value, your worth as a daughter of God, as a child of God, to not sell yourself. I think as a young woman, I wasn't popular, I didn't have boyfriends. I think, I wanted to be noticed. I wanted people to like me, that sort of thing. So I did some foolish things as a young woman that I wish I could, go back and tell her. Now, would I have listened to myself? I don't know. But I just hope, and I've seen that with some friends' daughters where they're not all, some of them have their heads on right and they know who they are and they're not gonna, they know that they're worthwhile and they're not gonna put up with anything less than they deserve, and that's great. But I don't know why. My parents, I should have had all that confidence, but for whatever reason, I didn't. So I would hope that's what I would tell myself, and if any young people are listening to that, you are worth a lot.
You're a treasure.
A child of the King.
Yes.
You don't let someone treat you as less than you deserve.
That's good. Very good. Before I ask the last question, I do want to mention this book. This is another one of my favorites of yours. I have it on my Kindle, so this is a copy from the library. But The Maid of Fairborn Hall is very different, actually, from Lady of Milkweed Manor. This one is deep, but it's also so fun. I found myself chuckling. It was just so fast and fun. So I have to mention it. There's so many Julie Klassen books that are awesome. But I just
have to say, so this is an upstairs downstairs. It's about a lady who goes into hiding as a housemaid and ends up working as, she's never done a day of work in her life, and ends up working as a housemaid in a manor home where two former suitors, two brothers, live. But I was writing this before Downton Abbey hit the U.S. and hit it big. I was already writing writing this novel, so I didn't steal the idea from them.
So Julie did it first.
But no, yeah. But I did. I certainly loved Downton Abbey. Have loved Downton Abbey, and certainly as I was doing some editings, I might have been inspired by a few things I saw in that whole upstairs downstairs relationship. Okay. But I enjoyed writing that one as well.
It was very fun. Just think of well-to-do person having to dive into all of that, and there's
chamber
just
pots.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Just imagine having to empty the little under the bed toilet
when you've never done
of the men in your life that you might have a crush on or might not.
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that one.
Yeah. So last question: what are you working on now, and when do you think it might come out?
I am working on two things right now. It's July as we speak, and I am trying to finish up working on those early rough edits of a Christmas novella. So it's Christmas in July at the Klassen household. Awesome. And it is the editors asked me to do a novella set in Ivy Hill, so it's related to my series, but it's going to be, hopefully if I've done my job right, it'll be, you can read it and enjoy it if you've not read the series, but you can also, if you've read the series, you'll get to revisit some favorite characters from the series. So that I need to finish up very soon, and that will come out next September. In general, publishing seems to be about a year advance lead time, so that's what I need to finish up very quickly, and then I need to dive into to my next book. Otherwise, what's coming out next from me is in December, The Bridge to Belle Island. I still have final galleys to do, so I'm through everything else, so it's done. I just have to read the final galleys.
So it comes out before Christmas?
It'll come out very end of November or very beginning of December, and it's a mystery set on an island on the Thames River in England, and I'm really excited about it. I hope you like it.
I love your mysteries. I was so excited when I saw the cover, and I was like,
it's my most mysterious, or most yet.
That is on my Christmas list already.
Excellent.
So if you would like to enter the contest, the giveaway to win one of Julie's books, check the link in the description. And Julie, you have been amazing.
Aww,
thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenny. I enjoyed it. It wasn't so scary.
No, not bad at all. All right, until next time, happy reading.
Thank you.